dimes roll. Let them make you a clown. Let them beat you up and
Hello, welcome to another fine edition of It's a Sports Show. I'm forgetting the name of the show already because I'm stumbling here because this is unusual.
Yeah, I'm
Look
back.
who's on the side of you. It's not a
It's
ghost.
unbelievable.
It's
I'm back.
really
I'm
Dave
off-
Bettencourt.
I just got off the DL. Actually, I was suspended for steroid
Steroid
use.
use. You look kind of jacked, actually.
Oh, thanks.
Now that you mention it.
It's the hair.
It's all in the
He
brain.
was away pumping some iron.
Yeah.
Let's not put all the attention on Dave, because after all,
No, let's.
you, my friend, are coming back from Miami, where, well, lo and behold, I guess the record for the Patriots in Miami isn't as bad as it was a week ago.
That's certainly true.
First of all, how was your trip?
It was a tremendous trip. It's always a successful trip. You get to be young.
Successful if you're you and not the
Well,
Miami Dolphins.
But in general, we get a lot of Patriots fans who go down. We go down for a few days, and you can tell my voice is a little,
You sound like a
it's a
horse.
little rough. You do a lot of partying.
Nice.
And when you get older like me, you're always trying to recapture your youth, so you'll probably act
Any
dumber than the younger guys. And as you can see, I brought this just for effect because it's winter.
Right.
I got my last hurrah.
You
my
do
little
look
name.
a little.
He's tan. He's nice.
Yeah, he's kind of like medium.
Beautiful weather down in South Florida. I mean, I should
Medium
consider
rare.
it medium rare.
Were there any parties at Ricky Williams' tent?
There were, but there was an expensive cover charge. Either that or you have to have a clear bag with you,
like
and I didn't have either.
There's only 3 people allowed in the tent at a time. So
There was 3 people allowed, but
he sleeps in his car outside the stadium.
all in all, besides the game, it was a successful trip. But if you're a Pats fan, you're probably pretty happy.
What's that
Well-
like when you head into Miami? You're a Miami fan now. I went to a Patriots game as a Niners fan, and I was on Patriots turf. But you're going. You're.
How's that Niners fan working out for you?
Yeah, it's
Well,
working out
Niners,
real well.
Bengals, it depends which week it is.
Yeah, I've been a Bengals fan this year too. You're a Miami Dolphins fan, but you're actually in Miami. So does that make? Are you kind of like the home guy, and the Patriots guys are the ones on the outside?
In all seriousness, it's a great feeling. Like, I went down there 7 years ago. That was my first time there.
Yeah.
And having gone, I probably went maybe 12 times to Foxborough before I went to Miami.
Yeah.
When I got to Miami, I was like kissing
Feel
the
like
ground.
at home?
Oh, it's a whole new feeling. If you've been to Foxborough, you get razzed. I mean,
Right.
that's just the way it is.
Yeah, I wasn't smart enough.
And when
to
you go
wear
there,
all my
you see the
Niners
cars, you see the banners, you see the flags, you see the tailgates with the vans. Similar to Foxborough.
The shrines to Dan
The
Marino.
shrine to Dan Marino, the bronze statue that I had my picture taken next to.
Nice.
It's definitely a good feel. Unfortunately for me, we sit, because we go down with the group, in somewhat of a Patriots section. But, Miami's been 6-2 there the last day, so usually I have a lot of fun with the Patriots fans.
Right.
But this year, it was a good game until the very end. I got razzed. I had a towel. I was crying.
Yeah, the
on it
very
and everything.
end when the final score was given.
The final score is always a bummer. That's really a
I think so.
buzzkill, that final
The
score.
Patriots won, but in no means is this Patriots team anywhere near what they should be.
They
Or-
should have lost.
I mean, they
that
have a lot of
game.
injuries, but also this. Yeah, I mean, they made Gus Frerotte look like he was.
Well, but
Archie
they do
Manning.
have a lot of
Right.
injuries. I mean, there's a couple different ways you can look at this if you're a Pats fan.
Gus Frerotte.
One is, obviously, they're still playing terrible, but, I mean, they did lose a lot of guys, and from a Miami point of view, they really should have beat them. Never mind the circumstances of the game, just with all their injuries.
Well,
People were
Brady really struggles down there. I mean,
He does. They have
the
a hard
Dolphins
time.
are in his head.
It's usually very warm down there, but there was actually a little cloud covering the breeze.
Yeah.
So it
So
actually
what
went.
was it? Only like 74?
He threw
No, it
2
was a
picks,
little more
right?
than that. It was about 82.
Oh,
but it-
unbelievable.
But it wasn't that suffocating heat, which I've been there, and I don't know how any team could win there because, I mean, it's very, very warm. But there was a little bit of a breeze, and it was actually kind of a dog of a game. I mean, Miami looked like...
They couldn't run the ball.
Well,
and that's what they wanted
but
to
at
do.
the beginning, they had a chance to go up 14-0. Randy McMichael caught a pass down to the 5. That's after having missed a field goal, so
Right.
that's 10 points there.
Right.
He fumbles at the 5. The Patriots pick it up with 2 minutes to go in the half. So Miami technically could have been up 14-0 at the half.
Right.
Patriots come back down and get a field goal. It was 7-3, and right away I had that queasy feeling in my stomach.
Something
I
just
said,
ain't feeling
"Well,
right."
that was a huge turning point because after that, Miami went to sleep.
Yep.
The Patriots didn't do much either. Then in the fourth quarter, both teams went back and forth, and the Patriots got the usual, lucky interference call, stuff like that. Just bitter
Is it lucky when it's not against Miami?
Absolutely not.
Yeah, of
big
course
long
not.
pass interference call.
Come on,
But
Teddy
listen,
Bruschi, this guy just had a stroke and he's like jumping all around.
he made a great play in the first half, as
Yeah,
we all
knocked
saw.
that pass down.
He knocked that pass down. Watching it live is a little different than on TV. On TV, you see the pass and you see the player.
Right.
But watching it live, you see the whole thing develop.
Right.
And it's like you've got the anticipation of a touchdown, and then all of a sudden you see Poncherello come through and just block it. Like I said, ever since
Like
Chips,
Jimmy would say that to his
ever
face.
since Chips, he's been. I'm going to say it to his face, all right?
Sure you will.
Behind a plate of bulletproof glass. Pancho, dun, 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 dun.
Well,
But hey, listen,
it's a big win for the Patriots because it's a division win, which is those are the games you got to win. But like Dave said, the Patriots are still hurting, and now they lost yet another safety. How many safeties have they gone through on this team?
Dan Copeland was seen in crutches.
That's a bad.
I mean,
that's
he's their
bad
center.
news if they're-
But like I said, I mean, if you're a
Because
Patriot,
they have Hochstein, and he's like undersized for being a center.
Yeah.
He's not a very big center, but
Right.
he did all right when they put him in the game. The first thing I was expecting is when you get that new center, you're like, oh, geez.
He's gonna get
Please
plowed
don't go out
over.
of the shotgun or anything.
well, I mean, as much as I hate to say it, they continue to find a way to plug people in.
Right.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's what they do best.
This isn't like a few years ago, but I mean, if you're a Patriot fan, you're going to say, hey, we went down to a place where we traditionally struggle,
yeah.
and we come out of there with a win with half a team,
Sure.
And from a Miami point of view, I mean, not that, don't get me wrong, I got a lot of shtick, but, obviously it isn't a Super Bowl team, but they could have been 4-5, tied with the Patriots for first.
Well, that's what we were talking about.
That's a
Was
big
I think if
yeah,
Buffalo
that's a big
won,
swing.
Buffalo did win, and they would have all been tied for
it
first.
would have been a three-way tie for first.
Now the Patriots are 5-4,
And they go play New Orleans, which isn't. They're not playing very well.
Should be a
so-
cakewalk.
Well, nothing's a
Well,
cakewalk.
Nothing's
though,
a
anymore
cakewalk,
with
but
this
if you
New
look at
England
the
team.
schedule, I mean,
I just
this
saw
is
the
game
lines.
they
The
should
Patriots
win.
are favored by 10, which I think is
Yeah.
a little bit a lot for a team that's
I don't
going to
think
have
so.
to, even against New Orleans.
New Orleans is
Well,
horrible.
the Saints like to throw the ball around the yard, and we know what happens with the Patriots can't stop the pass.
Now, where
And
is this game?
or the run.
It's
On
in
the
New
road?
England.
Aren't they 30th in
it's-
yard? They're like last in yards.
Yeah,
allowed
they're,
per
they're
game.
terrible.
They give up 360 yards to Gus Frerotte, who I thought was
And Aaron Brooks is better than Gus Frerotte.
a big question mark, but he actually played somewhat of a decent game. He missed a couple passes. I think it was a little windy on the field. They gave up 360 yards, but they stopped the run. They did a good job stopping the run, which was Miami's strength. And Miami had to go to
Yeah.
passing game. in the
Here's
second
what I don't
half.
The
understand. How
defense looked better, but they're still. I mean, you know what? And as much as when Harrison went down, I wasn't like, oh no, they'll never win again. But it's a lot worse than I think. I mean, a lot worse
beyond?
that I thought was.
Well,
gonna
we
be.
called it
I mean,
here.
Harrison is. I mean, he just brings so much to the team.
That
and he- and
Indy
he's
game,
he's that guy you don't want to get hit.
Scott, what did I
hit
say
by,
when he
you
went
know?
down? I said it right away. I said
He had a
this
big
is
impact
huge
on
loss.
that
injury.
Indy game last
Yep.
year in the postseason, and you take a big chunk out like that. It's hard to see how this team is going to be able to heal. That's all it's about at this point is healing.
Well,
the
Dylan
possibility of
too is a
healing.
big loss. I mean, they have
Yeah.
some guy they just picked up off of waivers running the ball, and
Well, how about this? I mean, Heath Evans,
he did good.
number 44, was cut by the Dolphins 2 weeks ago.
Yep.
Yeah, he
You know,
busted
so
him up.
Belichick says, hey, come on over and
Is
tell
this
me
the
some
guy-
secrets. I mean, he comes over and he runs for 80,
Right.
84, 88
This
yards.
the guy he's actually been signed by the Patriots like 3 times now.
He was hitting guys in the backfield
No,
too. and,
no,
like,
he was
it's
not
him.
signed by the Patriots. He was signed by Miami from Seattle. He was with Miami until...
Well, he's a fullback that
until
runs
he-
like a
He's a
halfback.
fullback. So
Somebody just got
He
signed by the
smacks people,
Patriots
too.
for,
That's
like,
what I
the
liked
third
about it.
time.
He was hitting like defensive backs, and they weren't taking him down.
yeah, he comes back against his old team and he runs for 80-something yards, which I would have...
Oh well.
I mean, which is unbelievable.
They were
And,
Do you
probably
think Ricky
semi.
Williams ever gets back to where Ricky Williams was? Because he isn't anywhere near that now.
well,
That's partly
I don't know if
Miami's
he can
fault.
do it on Miami because Miami invested a lot of money in a second-round pick. So, I mean, you can't just sit Ronnie Brown down and say, here you go, Ricky. I mean, I think he's quick enough. I've seen some runs where he showed flashes of his old self,
Right.
maybe in the right situation.
Miami's stuck between a rock and a hard place
He
because
doesn't
they
look
got a
as elusive.
second-round pick that they want to be their future, but they want to juice up Ricky Williams' stock a little bit so they could get.
What do you mean, juice up?
Yeah. Oops.
Are we talking steroids yet?
You know, you want to raise his stock because you want to try to get rid of him at the end of the year. I'm sure.
Well, if teams are desperate enough for a running back, they'll...
But there's a lot of running backs out there at the end of the year too. Like every
Right.
good running back is a free agent.
that's true. Edgerrin
So it's gonna
James,
be-
Sean Alexander, who's...
The guy's unbelievable.
We
yeah.
talked about this
He'll stay
before.
in season.
He
Not
scores
just,
3 touchdowns a week.
not just
I
because
know.
he's in our fantasy team, but
He's-
the
but
guy
I
is...
love
He's my
him.
only good player. I have no one. I just have Sean Alexander.
That's all
He
you need.
scores
Well, you know...
38 points, and my total for the week is like 42.
Well, you can't go into an NFL fantasy draft and draft 15 Cincinnati Bengal players. It just doesn't
I
work.
don't have any. I don't have any. Let's talk about those Cincinnati Bengals a little.
There we go.
Cares about the
7-2. Let me circle them here. Tied for first with Pittsburgh in the division. No one cares.
Nope.
No one cares.
They probably won't make the playoffs.
Indy.
Oh, yeah, I guess they would. They'd win the wild card. Because I think Pittsburgh wins that division.
Indy 9-0. Still cooking.
I'm glad you mentioned that, Mr.
Don't they play
Segway, because
Cincinnati?
it's Indianapolis at Cincinnati next week.
How do you like them apples? And
Yeah,
what did I
Bengals are
predict
done.
last week, by the way?
Bengals will be
Bengals
10-0.
are not done. No, I didn't predict the
I mean,
Bengals to be 10-0.
I mean, the Colts are
I
gonna be
predicted
10-0?
on this show, and I'll say it again to reiterate it. Cincinnati Bengals are the team to break the winning streak of the Indianapolis
Oh,
Colts.
you're out of your mind.
Doo-doo.
How's
Well-
that? How's that possible?
They're just going to do it.
Oh, yeah?
They're going to chuck the ball. They're going to run the ball.
Well, then I'll make a prediction. Edwin James will have 120 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns. Manning will throw for 3, and it'll be a blowout.
No, well,
Because they're unbelievable.
This is their
They'll
opposite.
beat you with any way possible, and
That's
now they have
not
a defense.
necessarily true.
They have a defense.
Well,
now
What
what
does
for the
Indy
first
face,
time.
though? Look at Indy's schedule.
Oh, don't even start that.
Come
nonsense.
on. That has
They've
no
played
play in
9.
it.
They've played 9 National Football League teams, and they've beat them all. And some of them are good. They're
But
still
most of
9-0.
them, some of them are good, but
Who are
most
the
of them
Bengals played?
suck.
They're 7-2.
Baltimore, Jacksonville, Cleveland, Tennessee, San Fran, St. Louis,
Who's
Houston. This is Indy, who they've played and beaten, and
they've
they're
beaten them all.
undefeated because they've beaten easy
Well,
teams.
But you can't. They can't. You
I know
can't
what
say
you're
that at the end
saying.
of the year. If
You-
they go 16-0, you can't be like,
Oh.
well, they played Houston twice.
You know what? They beat Cincinnati. I'll give them credit next
They
week.
will.
I
They
will
won't.
say this,
Oh,
though.
we're betting on it.
I will say, I will say this: the games are going to get tougher and tougher to win because now they got a target on their back
What's the spread?
5? As a Super Bowl, almost like a Super Bowl champ, because now they're
Definitely.
undefeated. Everybody wants to be the first team to beat them, and they got Cincinnati this week, Pittsburgh next week. They got San Diego coming up. I mean, not to jump on Scott's side by all means, because we're really opposites. This could be a good spot for Cincinnati. I mean, they got the total package.
Yeah, but the Cincinnati hasn't played well in a big game all season.
You laughed at my voice.
I don't know.
Look at that game. Well,
Every
look
time
at that
he comes
game.
on, I just lose
Look at
it.
that game where they tried. It was
Is
the
he
big
use
game
you like a
against.
clown? Is he
It was
funny
the big
like a
game
clown?
against Pittsburgh, right? And what
Yeah.
did they do? They laid an egg. They
Right.
played terrible. And who's their other loss to? It was probably another divisional team in which they needed to win.
Right.
They're just not good in a big game. And 2 years from now, they might be
Carolina.
the best team in the league.
Carolina's
Because
who
they are a
lost
good young football team, and Palmer's going to get better.
Yeah.
He's got that gigantic wide receiver that he throws to. What's his name? Chad Johnson.
Yeah, but are you saying
to.
this
Johnson
is
and Johnson.
Are you saying this is a lock?
It's a
for
team.
The Colts?
No, he's seeing.
I think it's a lock for the Colts. I've seen.
But
enough
you're
of the
also saying
Colts. They
Cincinnati's a
kick-
team of the
I don't know.
future.
I don't
The
agree.
Colts kick everyone's ass.
I don't agree with you because there is some merit to what he said. That they have played a very weak schedule. They haven't played many very good passing teams. They certainly have the big three. Well, it's true.
Cincinnati's
defense
losses
hasn't
were.
faced a lot of offenses that have been in the top 10.
Cincinnati's
Most of
losses were at Jacksonville
Yeah, but-
and home against Pittsburgh. Two tough
But in a
teams.
shootout, I'll take Indianapolis against the Bengals defense all day long. So even if the Bengals can move up and down the field and score at will, you can't stop Peyton Manning in that offense. Not right now.
I feel
You
the
can only
op-
hope to contain him. Is
You
that
can
what
only
you said?
hope to
If
contain
I'm
him.
going to give Indy credit, okay, I'm going to
It's
give
true.
their defense credit because I think it's their defense that has caused these wins to happen. When you're facing teams like San Francisco, you know what I mean? Not like going against my own team, but your defense is expected to let them only put up single digits, and that's exactly what happened. I
And
think it's
speaking
their
of Manning's,
defense.
you know what the most exciting game for me was? Because for some reason I really hate the New York Giants,
Really?
and I love that the air was just taken out of them this week.
Boy, they got beat. Now,
Manning threw 4 picks.
They're
and they
still
just
in
got
first.
I'm
killed.
glad he mentioned that because there was a couple upsets this week. Minnesota, without really showing up on offense, they got like 3 special teams touchdowns. Beat the Giants,
Yeah,
which was
it was a crazy game.
pretty good upset. Green Bay, you want to talk about the Patriots
Finally,
injuries?
yeah.
Yeah, Green Bay.
Green Bay is decimated. They go into
It's been
Atlanta
awful, and they beat Atlanta.
as a 9-point dog and beat them. I mean, it's unbelievable.
What about the
Wow.
Chicago Bears too?
San
This
Fran.
team's
San Fran's
Well,
not the
they
worst
win
team
it
in
by
the NFL
blocking
anymore.
field goals and running them back 100.
All right, let's stop talking football. We got some.
Chicago Bears are the best
Did you?
team in the
Oh,
better
did you want to
division.
mention the Eagles and their
It's
situation?
still 7.
Well, the
'Cause
Eagles
now
have been
McNabb-
an ongoing
Oh, what a
situation,
game.
as we've talked about. They lost a heartbreaker yesterday to the hated rival Cowboys, but they're 4-5. We all know the Donovan McNabb situation
Yep.
is.
just wanted to
He's
be in
probably
the
not
shot.
going to play ever again. I mean, Miami is one of the teams that they've mentioned as possibility for T.O.
T.O.?
And I don't think that would be a good idea. But I mean, they're
Did
4 and 5.
Did you watch Sunday Countdown, where they had the argument on when did T.O. become T.O.? Like when did Terrell Owens become T.O.?
Right.
And they showed this little piece that they did on him, and then they claimed that it was when he caught a touchdown pass to win a playoff game from Steve Young, and then Steve Young was like, "It wasn't then," and he was all fighting. It was the most ridiculous thing I've seen.
I didn't see that. I was probably dancing on top of a bar in Fort Lauderdale, so I'm sorry I
Naked?
missed that one.
Oh, let's hope not. Don't put
Not
those
naked
images.
because they would have rolled me back into the water.
How much time we got to talk about baseball, Farrah?
Enough.
We got about 15 minutes.
Oh, beautiful, because we got plenty to talk about. You all set with football? Was there anything else?
All set.
We have a lot to talk about baseball. Dave's here. We might as well take advantage while he's here. It'll be another 8 weeks before he's back again.
Clemens was robbed. Should have been Cy Young.
Let's go to
All right,
baseball.
let's go to Cy Young first. Go for it, Dave.
I just said my piece. Rocket should have been Cy Young.
And why wasn't he? That's the question.
Because Chris Carpenter won it.
Yeah.
Didn't he? Yeah.
You
Chris
take a
I
look
don't
at
think
Chris
we brought him in for a
Carpenter's-
30-second soundbite, did we? You better elaborate a little bit more
Take
than
a look
that.
at Chris Carpenter's stats, though. I mean, they're ridiculous. And I know
They are
that
ridiculous.
Roger
But Roger
is, too.
Clemens had a 1.97 ERA and let up like 5 earned runs the whole season on the road. And I think that was,
Do we
and he
put-
basically carried Houston into the playoffs with no bats, and they made it to the World Series.
Right.
Even though Clemens had a interesting injury in the World Series.
Sure did.
The most boring World Series in the history of World Series this is.
Yeah, I
But-
wasn't even entertained by it throughout
No.
the entire
But anyway,
quick series.
we could talk about A-Rod. What do you think about A-Rod beating out Ortiz?
I still think he's a pansy. I think
Okay.
the problem
Don't
is
beat around the bush.
yeah,
we-
he's a
we-
great baseball player.
we talked about it. I think that Ortiz got hurt. It's the old Ross Perot strategy. Ortiz got hurt by having Manram on the same, on the team. with
Yeah.
him. I think that Manram took away some Ortiz votes, and that hurt him.
I think what happens is, this is MVP has become most offensive player for the most part.
absolutely.
And I don't mean like,
Smelly offensive.
Carl Everett
not
offensive.
Not offensive, offensive.
Yeah, I think you look at the numbers; they're very similar. Ortiz probably even has some of the better numbers.
Right.
And I was a little surprised just because I think if you take Rodriguez off of the Yankees, they're still really good. But I think Ortiz carried the Red Sox
Absolutely.
a great deal more than A-Rod did.
Especially at times when Manram went
But then
into
again, I'm a Red
slump.
Sox fan, so I'm going to say that.
Okay, here's the big
all day
question.
long.
Should a quote-unquote part-time player be MVP because he doesn't play the field?
Yeah, that could have hurt him too.
I know
Yeah.
some people say that they're not voted on for the defensive prowess, and we can go back with some past MVP winners.
Did
and
A-Rod win a Gold Glove this year? They do Gold Gloves yet? I don't think
They didn't do him yet. Not yet.
I
I
mean,
think he will.
that's the big question. I think there's some merit to that. I know a lot of people are very PO'd that A-Rod,
Yeah.
has nothing to do with the playoffs because that's voted on before the playoffs, so
Right.
you can't go to A-Rod's
Right. Double play.
playoff record. But I think there is something to be said for a guy who doesn't play the field. I know a lot of people are going to disagree with me, but
Double
we don't know
play
what
Rod.
effect that has. Well,
I tend to agree with Dave because even putting A-Rod's defense into the mix, I still think you take A-Rod out.
Well, look how many big
You
games
can plug
Ortiz
that.
won. But I
Right.
mean, I don't think that has anything to do with it either.
The problem-
I don't think
it's
they look
exactly
at
what
that
you're
as
saying.
much as
It's
they
not
look at
even-
probably. I mean, if these two are so close,
well, I mean,
but A-Rod plays the field and plays defense, then
you're
I
a
think you got to
valuable
give
player
it to Alex
if you
Rodriguez.
win games for your team. I think that's
That's
the
what I
definition
mean,
of
and
a
that-
valuable player.
Right.
Yeah.
But A-Rod, he put up some mighty stats during the season. I mean, is he being hurt because he's on the Yankees and they got Jeter and that whole all-star cast?
With the numbers
He's
that
still a
Vladimir
great baseball
Guerrero
player.
puts up, why is this guy not closer in the mix? I mean, one actual first place vote out of the 28
I think
that
it's
are placed.
probably because he fell off and he was kind of disappeared for a while late in the season.
It looked like he still
in
put
that-
up good stats,
like
though. He
August,
just
September, though, the
low-profile.
Angels kind of looked like they might actually lose to the A's there for a while, and then they
Right.
kind of bounced back.
That has
I
a
don't know,
lot
I'd
to
have
do.
look into it.
That
Does
has a lot to
market
do
have
with
something to do with it?
Well, the voting,
I think it
end
does.
of the year, yeah, of course that has a little to do with it. But I think it's how you finish too. I think maybe baseball writers have like a short-term memory, so they're like,
Yeah.
well, Ortiz
That's a
batted
good point. And
400 in the month of
And
September.
anytime you saw Red Sox highlights, who was on? It was Ortiz.
all the time.
And making a hit at the end of the game, whether it was single, double, triple, home run, whatever. Well, probably not triple. He probably didn't run about
I'm pretty
the
sure
three
he
bases,
wasn't.
but,
I've seen the guy hit one triple ever.
the
singles,
national
doubles.
MVP though was that was
Finally.
that was a lock. I mean, Pujols has just
Yeah.
been a monster for every single season he's been in the league.
Where's he been? Yeah, he's. This is his first win finally, right?
I don't know.
Or-
is it?
or
No, I
is
thought he
he-
won another time. I
Oh,
thought
yeah,
he was
'cause you-
always-
No, that was
You
his
made the
first
comment.
MVP award.
That was his first actual
Yes.
MVP award.
Oh,
Why?
that's right.
Not because I'm a genius, because it says it right here on my sheet.
And I'm looking at the same sheet, and I still don't
Well, I
see
think
it.
he always would lose. to
Very
Barry
first
Bonds.
sentence.
And then Beltray had that season last year.
Right.
and Bonds was in the league.
Bonds is always there, of course. So Bonds out of the mix. Beltray had a terrible year.
And
so
he moved,
Pujols,
switched leagues too.
Oh, right.
Pujols
right.
isn't. He was a.
Pujols just kept it up. That's all he
He's
had
an
to do.
animal.
You know,
I mean, Andrew Jones hit 50-something home runs, but
and even
he didn't have
only,
the batting average or the RBIs or the big hits that Pujols did.
a little disappointing. Same thing with Vlad on one side. Now you got Derek Lee on the other. You know, where does this guy
Well, 'cause
not
Derek Lee
get
fell
votes?
off.
Yeah,
I mean, he fell off the
maybe
table.
that's
I mean,
short-term memory.
Derek
has-
Lee was like, what was he?
He was going for the triple
Yeah,
crown
he was
at
triple
one point.
crown until about July, and then he just kind of fell off. And then you have that team that just kind of fell apart too, the Cubs.
Right.
Like we said, it's a long season.
Yeah.
So you kind of
He's
have
made
to weigh it
that.
all
He's
in.
made this comment.
It's a long
about
season.
every other week since you've been here. Hey, football! We're into week 9 already. Wow, that goes by fast compared to
I'm
baseball.
just glad the buys are over in football. I hate the bye week.
I would
Yeah.
agree with you. I don't like the buys either.
It kind of messes the standings up a little
Rest
bit.
is for wusses.
All right, elsewhere
rest.
in baseball.
Elsewhere in baseball.
New steroid policy, and it's a little bit stiffer, finally. So, 50-game suspension on the first positive test, which prior was the little 10-game dinky suspension. So Ralphie would really be hurting now if this had taken place. Second positive test, 100 games, which previously was a 30-day suspension. And then third positive test, finally,
Lifetime
the
ban.
lifetime ban, with player having right to apply
Well,
for
you know what it
reinstatement
was?
after 2 years.
Our drug policy here at It's a Sports Show,
We have one?
steroid, we put a longer
one.
suspension on Dave
Yeah.
Right.
It's 30 games.
8 weeks.
than the 10. Right. So they looked at that and said, we can't have that. So they.
But
So
the thing
next
is,
time you mess
and
up.
I'm not, I can't, my lawyers don't want me to get into it too much, but all I have to say about my drug suspension is that it was B12 and it
Yeah.
was shot in my ass. And
Of course it
I
was.
can't help what was
Can you say yes on It's a Sports Show?
He's already said it a couple of
B12.
times.
It was a B12 shot. I saw that. That's what I thought it was. I didn't know that it was ape hormones.
Well,
I thought the big deal was the. I thought the big deal was the clearing the cream. Now all of a
the
sudden
clear
we're
and the
all-
cream. I love that.
We're all into like
That's
shooting
what
again.
that's what Sheffield rubbed on himself and
Right.
somehow
Accidentally.
didn't get in trouble.
Where's
Yeah.
this show going?
Anyway.
Rubbed on himself, clearing the cream.
In the
I hope
ass.
there's no young children
So
watching
you're a
this show.
baseball traditionalist. What do you think about these penalties? Finally, getting down to being.
Yeah, that's the way it
I
should
just
be.
have a question.
Should be.
Where's the Players
honest, too.
Association in all this?
They agreed to it, so I
Yeah.
guess.
Did they agree to it?
Yeah.
Okay.
They were
I guess
involved
so.
as
Okay.
well as Congress. I think a lot of this had
Yeah,
to do
there's
with.
a lot of pressure on
Let's
baseball.
do this so Congress doesn't get meddling in too much. Because if Congress gets involved, you're going to have more trouble than just a 50-game suspension.
Well,
in my
I
opinion.
just think the first one kind of opened the floodgates a little bit, just kind of crept it open, that
Right.
first
Yeah.
steroid policy. Finally, there was enough
And the
pressure.
Palmeiro thing didn't help either, though.
Yeah, the Palmeiro
Oh.
thing, you know, yeah, right.
And McGuire
was.
looked like an
I've
idiot.
never done steroids.
Well, McGuire is the one that looks the worst. I mean,
I think Palmeiro looks the worst out of the two,
Well-
simply because Palmeiro stood up there in front of Congress and said his
Yeah.
thing. And how in the world did Congress determine
What a dumbass.
that Palmeiro did not perjure himself? How, they came down with that determination
Well, I
last
think-
week. How did they
I don't
figure
know.
that one out?
Well,
They dropped the ball.
well,
Did they not find any videotape showing him saying that to Congress?
No, but the problem is that happened after. That's only when they were able to prove it was after the hearings.
Right.
So how, really can't say he perjured himself. We all know he perjured himself. Let's
Yeah.
face it.
Right.
But they can't prove that he used steroids out.
Right. It didn't happen
before that
earlier,
day.
and baseball too got a lot of heat for making it after his was it 3,000
Yeah.
hit.
Yeah.
You
go
know,
figure.
the things
the
came
guy
out.
should
so,
never
yeah.
have had that. You know?
But I think
Well, it's all right. He won't make the Hall of Fame anyway because he's
No,
a
he won't.
DH.
I finally think that that's a good steroid policy. I mean, 50 games.
Yeah, that's serious.
That's almost
We
half a
never
year.
had a second. This season, we didn't have a second
No.
guilty. It was always first time.
Yeah.
How could
A lot
you
of no
even-
names too.
How could you even get to that point?
I think the
unless
biggest
you're
players
Bill
were
Romanowski.
Palmeiro. Well, obviously Palmeiro is the biggest one.
Right.
But then after that, you've got that reliever for
Well-
Martin Rincon for the Twins.
Right.
I'll tell you how. This is just my theory. If you're on the outside looking in to the Powerball,
Yeah.
you know, there's always the temptation to get to that next level. I mean, if you're making, you know, let's say these guys are making, they're probably not even making $1 million. I mean, if you're making $600,000-700,000, you see Joe Schmo over there with the $4 or
Brett
$5
Boone.
million contract. I mean, you know, you're talking,
Find
wow, you
ways to
know,
improve yourself.
I mean,
still think-
even if you have one good year,
Yeah.
baseball,
That's all you need.
the baseball contracts are guaranteed. One good year, even if you go from 700 to making $3 million a year.
Well,
difference.
you,
I mean,
you look at
yeah,
like
I just-
Adrian Beltre, Brett Boone, guys that
Had one
were
good year.
very kind of mediocre, and then in the year where they could get the money,
Yep.
suddenly they have giant seasons. I mean, Boone is embarrassing. I mean, Boone was kind of like a banjo hitter for a while. Then he started to get a little bit more pop, and then all of a sudden he had 50 home runs, got a
Right.
huge contract, and fell off. So
Right.
I mean,
And Beltre.
but that's
we
exactly
need a
what
little-
happens. I mean, you're in the minor leagues, you're making nothing. You know, and I
Beltre's
think that's where the
same
temptation
example.
is. You
Bel-
can-
Absolutely.
You bulk
Beltre-
up, get more power,
And
yeah.
it's the old, hey, they're doing it. He's faster than me.
Right.
You know, they're
This
doing it.
guy's got to have
Why
a better
should
head
I
on
be
their
and it-
shoulders, though. I mean,
Well-
whether that's them doing it themselves or Major League Baseball bringing some system into place that says, hey, we got to smarten these guys
Well,
up.
that's the case now, but like we
Yeah.
talked about earlier, you're saying you're going to have a better head on your shoulders, but
But there's always the next best thing in
there's a
baseball.
temptation.
head.
A
There's
better
not a
always,
bigger head.
But the problem with
Can I say
baseball
big?
too is that there's always someone waiting, someone better than
Right.
you. So I mean, you only have this window from
Right.
age, 19 to
you know,
whatever.
if I
and
know
you-
he's doing it and you're doing it and you guys are,
awesome at
reaping
what
the
we do,
rewards, I'm like, hey,
yeah,
you know what,
he's got to do it to keep
I mean,
up.
unless you got God-given ability and you're far ahead from everybody else, which is
So it's all
a
about
tough-
temptation.
I
'Cause
think
playing
so.
the game of
gotta be.
baseball, a kid's game, and making $700,000 just isn't enough.
Yeah, I
no,
mean,
there's a big difference between 700,000.
yeah, but we've talked about
20
this.
million
Is
a
there
year.
a point where you really kind of have the most money you're gonna need? I mean,
No.
Come on, 700,000.
There could be other stories too. I mean,
Yeah, but we've talked
there
about
could
this
be-
before. You can't rationalize their world.
Yeah.
You
You
could.
know, you got 700,000, you
What
want
about-
$1.5 million. You got $1.5 million, you want $3 million.
You're a little Dominican shortstop, and you're only your life you're poor, and the only way you can make it big is you have some baseball skill. But in order to get over the top, you need to
Juice it up.
Take a
Testing
little something.
frequency. A player will
I mean,
be
you know,
tested.
How about that story?
If you want to touch the race card, I don't know. It's kind of a.
No, I'm just I'm just
He's just
saying.
using that for an
Well, you
example.
know,
Like a lot
you're
of
a poor
Latino
Dominican
baseball
boy.
player.
A player will be tested
I
during
didn't-
spring training
don't get me in
physicals
trouble.
and at
They'll
least
come over my
once
house.
during the regular
Boycott
season
me.
with additional random testing. Under the previous agreement, spring training through the end of the regular season with additional random testing. So a little more testing going on now, and it's a guarantee now as far as that they are going to be tested. So the big question, the whole reason why this is all being put in place, are steroids going to disappear as far as being taken by Major League Baseball players? This is a risk now you're taking. 50 games is a third of a
They
season.
can't
I
catch
think.
everything now,
Here's
yeah.
my opinion. Steroids, as we know it, will disappear.
Yep.
But are you telling me there's not a few more Balcos out there coming out with something that doesn't fall under the definition of steroids?
Like
I just think
hormone.
there's way too much money in that type of business for there not to be.
T-Rex blood.
Yeah, I mean, you just don't know. I mean, I think it's obviously a good start. Now, how about this?
T-Rex blood
I mean-
extracted from fossils.
What happens
Exactly.
to the years of the 70 home runs? We haven't seen those in
Yeah.
a couple of years.
And it's too bad
that-
that
that's a
those
big
years
question.
even happened.
73
feel,
home runs is the most ridiculous
I
thing I've
feel
ever
so
seen.
guilty for enjoying the Sosa McGuire year. You know what I'm
How
saying?
about Sosa, that
I wish
guy?
it never happened.
What a sad
How about the
case.
Baltimore Orioles? No Ponson, no Sosa, no Palmeiro. Done. All
No,
done.
they're not done. They have a lot of money to spend. That's
Well,
what
I
it's
mean,
all
those
about.
players are done. So
Yeah, but they don't
is
need
this a
'em.
good thing for Baltimore then? Is
Wait
it a
till-
case of getting rid of
You
the
know, I got
junk?
news for you. Wait until Toronto signs A.J. Burnett, and then they'll have Burnett, Towers,
Yeah.
and Halliday, and they're going to be a team to be messed with. Watch.
A 1-minute warning.
Well, I
Must
mean,
be hockey.
I think it'll certainly
Oh,
be
I have
interesting
something to say, wrapping up.
Yes.
Just in case you haven't seen it, HBO cast us now as the special on Marvin Barnes former PC Friar great.
Absolutely.
It's about his story, and it's really good. So if you should check it out.
Little plug for HBO.
It plays on HBO all the time. Well, a little plug for Marvin Barnes. 'Cause
Speaking
he's
of
a great
PC,
guy.
just a quick note. This is on Thursday. Everybody will know Dwight Brewington possibly going to be suspended.
Yep.
Well, is suspended. Hasn't showed up. Might be gone from the team. And I mean, I'm sure we'll talk about that as the season comes up. At PC in the new conference, well, in the same conference, just with much better teams. It's going to be a long, long year for Providence College basketball.
Is he deaf?
We'll talk about that. Yeah,
Yeah.
he is. Yep.
That's amazing.
And speaking of BC, by the way, I didn't go there. That's all I have to say.
We all went to Hard Knocks University here, and it's a sports show.
It's a sports show at yahoo.com. There you go. Pistons, the last unbeaten team. It's a sports show at yahoo.com. Keep your emails coming. Thanks
tonight.
to Dave Betancourt, Dolphin Paul.
Don't they play the
I'm
Seas
Scott
tonight?
Cray. Thanks to Mitch and Farrah for running the
so.
show.
But
And we'll see you next week.
Seas.